Before Jeff Bezos became the architect of modern e-commerce, before he redefined cloud computing, before he dreamed of humanity living among the stars, he was a toddler with a problem. His parents had placed him in a crib. He wanted out. Most children would cry. Jeff Bezos, at age 3, found a screwdriver and systematically dismantled his crib from the inside. This story, recounted by his mother Jackie, reveals something fundamental about how Jeff Bezos thinks. When confronted with constraints, he doesn't complain or wait for rescue. He finds the tools, understands the mechanism, and engineers his own solution. This pattern, this distinctive approach to problem solving, would repeat throughout his life, scaled up from cribs to bookstores to global infrastructure. Understanding how Jeff Bezos thinks isn't just about understanding one successful entrepreneur. It's about understanding a systematic approach to building the future that has reshaped entire industries and may yet reshape humanity's place in the solar system. Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen was born on January 12, 1964, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His biological father left when Jeff was a toddler. His mother Jackie remarried Miguel Mike Bezos, a Cuban immigrant who came to America at 16 as part of Operation Pedro Pan, fleeing Castro's regime. Mike adopted Jeff, giving him the Bezos surname. Mike Bezos worked as a petroleum engineer for Exxon, and the family moved frequently. But it was Jeff's maternal grandfather, Lawrence Preston Geese, who profoundly shaped his thinking. Geese had worked on space technology and missile defense systems for DARPA and the Atomic Energy Commission. Every summer, young Jeff spent months at his grandfather's 25,000-acre ranch in Cotulla, Texas. On that ranch, Jeff learned self-reliance. When equipment broke, they fixed it. When fences needed repair, they built them. His grandfather taught him that resourcefulness mattered more than resources. If you needed a tool that didn't exist, you created it. If a problem seemed unsolvable, you approached it from a different angle. These summers instilled something crucial, the belief that the universe operates according to principles that can be understood and leveraged, and that with enough ingenuity, nearly any problem yields to determined effort. Bezos entered Princeton University in 1982, intending to study physics. He wanted to become a theoretical physicist, but after encountering the brilliant minds in Princeton's physics department, he experienced a humbling realization. Being very smart wasn't enough. Theoretical physics required a rare form of genius he recognized in others, but not quite in himself. Instead, he switched to electrical engineering and computer science, graduating summa cum laude in 1986. This decision reveals how Bezos thinks about self-assessment and strategic positioning. He didn't stubbornly pursue an impossible dream. He realistically evaluated his talents, identified where he could genuinely excel, and redirected toward maximum impact. The disciplines he studied, electrical engineering and computer science, taught him to think in systems. Everything is a system. Inputs, processes, outputs, feedback loops, optimization opportunities. This systems thinking framework would become the lens through which he viewed business, logistics, organizations, and eventually, space exploration. After Princeton, Bezos moved to Wall Street, working first at Fitel, then Bankers Trust, and finally, D.E. Shaw. At D.E. Shaw, a quantitative hedge fund, he became the company's youngest senior vice president at age 30. The firm used mathematical models and computer systems to identify market inefficiencies and exploit them at scale. This experience taught Bezos several critical lessons. First, he learned that data-driven decision-making beats intuition. D.E. Shaw didn't make bets based on gut feelings. They built models, tested hypotheses, and let numbers guide strategy. This quantitative rigor would later permeate every aspect of Amazon. Second, he understood leverage and scale. At D.E. Shaw, small advantages, when multiplied across thousands of transactions, generated enormous returns. This insight, that tiny improvements, systematically applied at scale, create massive competitive advantages, became foundational to Amazon's approach. Third, he learned that speed matters. In trading, milliseconds determine winners and losers. The fastest systems, the quickest decision-makers, capture value. This appreciation for velocity would manifest in Amazon's obsession with reducing every form of friction. Spring 1994, a number that demanded action. In the spring of 1994, Jeff Bezos encountered a statistic that would alter his life's trajectory. Web usage was growing at 2,300% per year. This wasn't just impressive growth, it was unprecedented, historically anomalous, civilization-altering growth. For most people, this would have been an interesting fact to mention at dinner parties. For Bezos, it triggered an immediate cognitive cascade. His systems thinking background kicked in. If web usage was growing that fast, commerce would inevitably move online. The question wasn't whether, but when, and who would capture that opportunity. But Bezos didn't just leap. He created what he would later call his regret minimization framework, a systematic method for making major life decisions. He projected himself forward to age 80 and imagined looking back at his life. The question wasn't, will this succeed? The question was, will I regret not trying? From that imagined vantage point, the answer was clear. He would deeply regret not participating in this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He would not regret trying and failing. This reframing, from risk of failure to risk of regret, liberated him to act. Choosing books, the logic behind the launch. After deciding to start an internet company, Bezos methodically created a list of 20 product categories that could be sold online. He applied rigorous criteria. Could the product be easily cataloged? Was shipping feasible? Did a large selection matter? Was there fragmented supply? He narrowed the list to 5 finalists: compact discs, computer hardware, computer software, videos, and books. Books won, and the reasoning reveals Bezos' analytical approach. The numbers told a story. There were over 3 million book titles in print globally. The largest physical bookstore might stock 150,000 titles. This meant that any physical store necessarily excluded 95% of available books. The internet eliminated that constraint instantly. Online, you could offer comprehensive selection, something physically impossible offline. Existing infrastructure exists. Major book distributors like Ingram and Baker Taylor maintained massive catalogs with standardized data. Bezos wouldn't need to create cataloging infrastructure from scratch. Books were ideal for shipping. Relatively light, durable, and uniform in nature, books could be mailed cost-effectively. Universal demand existed. Unlike many products with narrow audiences, books appealed across all demographics and psychographics. No comprehensive mail order catalog existed because it would be impossibly large and expensive to print and mail. The internet solved this problem elegantly. This is classic Bezos thinking. Find the intersection where technology creates new possibilities, where existing infrastructure can be leveraged, where customer pain points meet business opportunity, and where the basic economics make sense. July 1994. The cross-country journey. In July 1994, Bezos and his wife Mackenzie packed their belongings and drove cross-country from New York to Seattle. Bezos wrote the business plan during the drive. Why Seattle? Again, ruthless logic. Tech talent. Microsoft's presence meant Seattle had a deep pool of software engineers. Proximity to distribution. Ingram Book Group operated a major warehouse in Oregon, just hours away. Tax strategy. Washington state had no income tax, and by locating in a state with a smaller population, Amazon could delay collecting sales tax in larger states like California. The company started in a rented garage in Bellevue, Washington. Bezos built desks by purchasing doors from Home Depot and attaching legs. This wasn't hipster startup aesthetics. It was pure pragmatism. Doors were cheaper than desks, and every dollar saved could be invested in building the business. Those door desks became symbolic of Amazon's culture of frugality. The company still uses them today. His parents invested $245,573, a massive portion of their retirement savings. When Bezos explained the business, his father asked, "What's the internet?" Yet they trusted him. Bezos invested $10,000 of his own money and took out $84,000 in loans. By 1995, he'd raised another $150,000 from angel investors. July 16, 1995. Launch day. On July 16, 1995, Amazon.com officially launched. The site was bare bones but functional. The first book sold was Douglas Hofstadter's Fluid Concepts and Creative Analogies. In the first week, Amazon sold $12,000 worth of books. Within 30 days, sales reached $20,000 per week, with no press, no advertising, purely through word of mouth. A bell rang in the office every time someone placed an order. Within weeks, the bell rang so frequently they turned it off. Orders came from all 50 states and 45 countries. The business was working. But here's what separated Bezos' thinking from typical entrepreneurs. Amazon didn't expect to turn a profit for 4 to 5 years. While other e-commerce startups chased quick profitability, Bezos was building for decades. The 1997 shareholder letter, a declaration of principles. Amazon went public on May 15, 1997 at $18 per share. In his very first letter to shareholders, Bezos articulated principles that would guide Amazon for the next 3 decades. We will continue to make investment decisions in light of long-term market leadership considerations rather than short-term profitability considerations or short-term Wall Street reactions. This was in corporate platitudes. This was a declaration of war against short-term thinking. Bezos was explicitly telling investors, "We will prioritize building long-term value even when it damages quarterly earnings. If that's not acceptable to you, don't invest." Every year since, Amazon has included that 1997 letter in its annual reports. It stands as a reminder that the principles haven't changed even as the company has grown from a garage startup to a trillion-dollar empire. What Day One means. Day One isn't a slogan. It's a comprehensive philosophy about how organizations should operate. Bezos explained it most clearly in his 2016 shareholder letter when asked what Day Two looks like. Day Two is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And that is why it is always Day One. Day One thinking means operating with the urgency, flexibility, and customer obsession of a startup, regardless of size. It means resisting the bureaucracy, process focus, and risk aversion that kill large organizations. It means treating every day as if the company's survival depends on delighting customers and moving fast. Bezos identified specific behaviors that maintain Day One thinking. True customer obsession. Not competitor obsession, not product obsession, customer obsession. Start with what customers need and work backward. Resisting proxies. As companies grow, they replace reality with proxies, processes, surveys, market research. Day One companies remember that proxies are just indicators, not the thing itself. Embracing external trends. Fighting powerful external trends like machine learning or voice interfaces is a Day Two move. Day One companies embrace and leverage major trends quickly. High-velocity decision-making. Most decisions should be made with 70% of the information you wish you had. Waiting for more information is always overvalued. The leadership principles. Codifying culture at scale. As Amazon grew, Bezos faced a challenge. How do you maintain consistent decision-making across thousands of employees and hundreds of teams? His solution was to codify Amazon's values into 16 leadership principles that every employee must internalize. The first principle is customer obsession. Leaders start with the customer and work backward. They work vigorously to earn and keep customer trust. Although leaders pay attention to competitors, they obsess over customers. This isn't marketing copy. It's operational instruction. When facing a decision, the question is always, what's best for the customer, even if it costs us money today? A former Amazon executive shared this story. During an S-team meeting, someone suggested that if a competitor had the lowest price but was out of stock, Amazon shouldn't match the price. Why damage margins for no reason? Bezos immediately objected. If customers saw Amazon's price was higher, they might grudgingly buy the unavailable item elsewhere, but the experience would leave them associating Amazon with higher prices. He rejected the idea of protecting profit margin, emphasizing that customer trust was more valuable. This is Bezos thinking at its purest.
Make decisions that build long-term customer trust even when they reduce short-term profit. Understanding the Amazon flywheel. Bezos understood something fundamental about business leverage. He sketched it on a napkin, a circular diagram showing how each element of Amazon's business reinforces the others. Lower prices attract more customers. More customers attract more third-party sellers. More sellers mean greater selection. Greater selection attracts more customers. More customers increase sales volume. Higher volume allows for lower cost structure. Lower costs enable lower prices. The circle continues, accelerating. This wasn't just a nice theory. It was a deliberate design for self-reinforcing, compounding growth. Once the flywheel started spinning, momentum would build naturally. The marketplace revolution. The problem was inventory. To offer everything, Amazon would need to stock millions of products, requiring enormous capital and warehouse space. Traditional retailers would see this as an insurmountable barrier. Bezos saw this as a design problem. The solution was a third-party marketplace. If other sellers could list products on Amazon's platform, customers would get unlimited selection, sellers would get access to Amazon's traffic, and Amazon would earn a commission without carrying inventory or risk. The concept was simple. The execution was brutally difficult. Amazon launched auctions in 1999, a failure. They launched Z-Shops, another failure. But Bezos insisted the team keep iterating. Finally, with Amazon Marketplace, they found the right model. Today, more than half of all units sold on Amazon come from third-party sellers, yet customers experience it as one seamless Amazon experience. This marketplace transformed Amazon from a retailer into a platform, a fundamentally more powerful and scalable business model. The company finally turned its first profit in the fourth quarter of 2001, 1 cent per share on revenues of more than $1 billion. That profit margin was microscopically thin, but it proved the model worked. It vindicated Bezos' 7-year bet on long-term value over short-term gains.
2005. The $79 Gamble. In 2005, Amazon engineer Charlie Ward approached executives with an idea born from customer frustration. Customers complained about the $25 minimum for free shipping and slow delivery times. Ward suggested offering unlimited fast shipping for a flat annual fee. When the idea reached Bezos, he assembled a team immediately. The concept aligned perfectly with his thinking about customer experience and behavioral lock-in. Amazon Prime launched in February 2005 for $79 per year, offering unlimited 2-day shipping on over 1 million items. Wall Street analysts thought it was financial suicide. They predicted Amazon would lose money on shipping, especially from heavy users who ordered frequently. But Bezos understood something deeper than shipping economics. Prime wasn't really about shipping. It was about changing customers' mental framework so they wouldn't shop anywhere else. The psychology was brilliant. Once you've paid $79 for unlimited shipping, you have an incentive to consolidate all shopping on Amazon to maximize value. Every purchase anywhere else feels wasteful. You're not using what you've already paid for. This isn't rational economic calculation. It's human psychology. The bet paid off spectacularly. Prime broke even in just 3 months, far faster than the 2-year timeline Amazon had projected. By 2020, Prime had over 200 million members worldwide, generating more than $31 billion annually in subscription revenue alone. Prime members spend an average of $2,000 per year on Amazon compared to $600 for non-members. Expanding Prime's value proposition. Streaming video, music, ebooks, free photo storage, exclusive deals during Prime Day, early access to lightning deals, same-day delivery in select areas. Each addition made Prime more essential, increased switching costs, and deepened the moat around Amazon's business. Today, roughly 75% of all U.S. Amazon shoppers are Prime members, and the service has more than 250 million subscribers globally. Prime has become one of the most successful subscription products in history. The strategic genius wasn't just the service itself. It was recognizing that subscriptions create recurring revenue, predictable cash flow, and customer lock-in simultaneously. Bezos was thinking in systems again. How do you create a business model where customer loyalty, revenue stability, and competitive moat all reinforce each other? In 2003, the infrastructure insight. While Amazon's retail business captured public attention, Bezos was building something even more transformative behind the scenes. In the early 2000s, Amazon had developed sophisticated internal infrastructure to handle massive computational loads and storage needs. In late 2003, Chris Pinkham and Benjamin Black presented a paper to Bezos describing a vision for Amazon's computing infrastructure that was completely standardized, fully automated, and relied extensively on web services for everything. Near the end, almost as an afterthought, they mentioned an intriguing possibility. What if Amazon sold access to this infrastructure as a service? Bezos immediately grasped the potential. This wasn't about earning a few dollars renting servers. This was about becoming the infrastructure layer for the entire internet. In 2006, launching the cloud. In November 2004, Amazon launched Simple Queue Service, SQS, as its first infrastructure service for public use. In March 2006, Amazon S3, Simple Storage Service, followed, offering cloud storage. In August 2006, EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud, launched, providing virtual computing capacity. Together, these services created something unprecedented: instant access to enterprise-grade computing power and storage, available to anyone with a credit card, priced by the hour, requiring zero upfront investment. AWS addressed a massive customer pain point that most people didn't even recognize yet. Startups no longer needed to invest millions in data centers before launching. They could start small and scale infinitely. Businesses could focus on their applications rather than managing infrastructure. Companies could provision servers in minutes instead of months. Bezos saw what others missed. Amazon was already building world-class infrastructure for itself. The marginal cost of selling that infrastructure to others was relatively low. And solving infrastructure problems for millions of companies created a platform business with network effects, high margins, and defensive moats. The numbers. AWS as Amazon's crown jewel. The numbers tell a remarkable story. AWS generated $21 million in revenue in 2006. By 2012, it crossed $1.5 billion. By 2019, it reached $35 billion annually with 37% year-over-year growth. In 2024, AWS generated over $107 billion in revenue, accounting for roughly 17% of Amazon's total sales, but more than 50% of its operating profit. AWS maintains approximately 30% of the global cloud infrastructure market, ahead of Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud. It powers Netflix, Airbnb, NASA, the CIA, and millions of other organizations. Without AWS, much of the modern internet economy wouldn't exist in its current form. This is Bezos' thinking at scale. Identify infrastructure you're building for yourself, recognize that others have the same needs, and create a platform business that generates high-margin recurring revenue. AWS became Amazon's profit engine, funding retail expansion, original content for Prime Video, and countless experimental ventures. 2007. Disrupting books before someone else did. In November 2007, Amazon launched the Kindle, an e-reader designed to digitize books. The device sold out in 5.5 hours and remained out of stock for 5 months. The Kindle represented a paradox. Amazon was cannibalizing its core business. Why would a bookseller promote digital books that customers wouldn't purchase as physical inventory from Amazon? Because Bezos understood that disruption is inevitable. If someone was going to disrupt the book selling, he preferred it be Amazon. The Kindle wasn't about protecting the past. It was about controlling the future. Bezos insisted the Kindle be purpose-built for reading, not a multifunction tablet. This focus meant better battery life, e-ink displays that worked in sunlight, and the reading experience superior to tablets.
He pushed for wireless delivery, no computer required. You could buy a book and start reading in 60 seconds. By controlling both hardware and content, Amazon created the same vertical integration Apple had achieved with iTunes and iPods. Today, Amazon dominates the ebook market with roughly 65 to 70% market share. 2014, Star Trek made real. In late 2014, Amazon announced Alexa alongside its new Echo device. Alexa was inspired by the computer voice and conversational system onboard the Starship Enterprise in science fiction TV series Star Trek. Bezos had been working on voice interface technology since 2011, envisioning a hands-free AI assistant that could understand natural language and manage daily tasks. Amazon initially limited the first-generation Echo to Amazon Prime members or by invitation only, then released it widely in mid-2015. Less than a year after the launch of Alexa, Amazon announced the $200 million Alexa Fund, a program that would invest in companies making voice control skills and technologies. As of November 2018, Amazon had more than 10,000 employees working on Alexa and related products. In early 2019, Amazon's device team announced that they had sold over 100 million Alexa-enabled devices. The name Alexa was chosen deliberately. The hard consonant X sound is easier for systems to recognize accurately. The name also referenced the Library of Alexandria, symbolizing the goal of making all knowledge accessible through voice. Alexa's success wasn't guaranteed. Voice interfaces had failed repeatedly before. But Amazon made critical decisions, opening the platform to third-party developers through Alexa Skills, pricing Echo devices aggressively to drive adoption, and continuously improving the underlying AI. Hoped-for revenue never materialized from people using voice ordering for Amazon products. Alexa does not play audio ads, and display ads were relatively unsuccessful. In 2022, with the division losing several $billion per quarter, the company started laying off Alexa employees en masse. Yet Amazon persisted. In February 2025, Amazon introduced Alexa Plus, the latest version powered by generative AI. This is classic Bezos thinking. Make big bets, accept that not every bet pays off immediately, but maintain conviction in the long-term vision. The Zappos purchase. In 2009, Amazon acquired Zappos for approximately $1.2 billion in stock. On the surface, buying an online shoe retailer seemed redundant. Amazon already sold shoes. But Bezos wasn't buying inventory. He was buying culture and expertise in customer service. Zappos had built legendary customer service practices, free shipping both ways, 365-day returns, and 10-hour phone calls with customers if needed. Bezos recognized that Zappos understood something about customer obsession that Amazon could learn from. He kept Zappos operationally independent, preserving the culture he had paid to acquire. Whole Foods, entering physical retail. In 2017, Amazon acquired Whole Foods for $13.7 billion, marking Amazon's largest acquisition to date. Critics questioned why an online retailer would buy physical stores, but Bezos saw logistics advantages, prime real estate in affluent neighborhoods, and customer data in a new category. Within hours of closing the deal, Amazon slashed prices on key items. The message was clear. Amazon's ruthless efficiency would now apply to groceries. The acquisition also provided fulfillment centers in expensive urban areas and pickup points for Amazon Fresh. IMDb, Twitch, and Ring. Amazon's acquisition strategy reveals systematic thinking. In 1998, they bought IMDb, Internet Movie Database, before launching Prime Video. In 2014, they acquired Twitch for nearly $1 billion, recognizing that game streaming represented the future of entertainment. In 2018, they bought Ring for over $1 billion, accelerating their smart home ambitions. Each acquisition served a strategic purpose, entering new categories, acquiring technology or talent, accelerating timelines, or defending against competitors. The two-pizza team rule. Bezos created the two-pizza rule. No team should be larger than what two pizzas can feed. This typically meant teams of 5 to 10 people. The rule wasn't really about pizza. It was about maintaining agility, ownership, and speed. Research by Harvard psychologist J.R. Richard Hackman showed that as team size increases, communication problems grow exponentially. His conclusion: optimal teams have 4 to 6 members, and no team should exceed 10. Bezos structured Amazon around these small, autonomous teams with single-threaded leaders who owned outcomes. This decentralized structure allowed Amazon to move with startup speed despite employing over 1 million people. Narrative memos. No PowerPoint allowed. Bezos banned PowerPoint presentations from Amazon meetings. Instead, meetings begin with everyone silently reading a 6-page narrative memo for 20 to 30 minutes. Only after everyone has read the memo does discussion begin. This practice forces clearer thinking. Writing a narrative requires logical flow, complete thoughts, and addressing counterarguments. PowerPoint allows people to hide behind bullet points and skip difficult questions. The 6-page narrative memo became a forcing function for quality thinking. If you can't articulate your idea clearly in prose, you probably haven't thought it through. Working backwards, starting with the press release. Amazon's product development begins with writing the press release and FAQ for a product that doesn't yet exist. This working backwards process forces teams to articulate customer value before building anything. If you can't write a compelling press release explaining why customers would love this product, you probably shouldn't build it. This prevents building solutions in search of problems. 2014, the $170 million lesson. In July 2014, Amazon launched the Fire Phone, a smartphone designed to compete with iPhone and Samsung Galaxy devices. The device featured dynamic perspective, 3D interface using face tracking, and Firefly, technology to identify products and media. Initially priced at $200 with a contract or $649 unlocked. By October 2014, Amazon reported a $170 million write-off relating to the Fire Phone, including the disposal of $83 million of unsold phones held in inventory worldwide. The device was discontinued after just 1 year. What went wrong? The Fire Phone violated several of Amazon's core principles. It abandoned customer obsession for company obsession. The phone was designed to drive Amazon purchases, not solve customer problems. Firefly's main purpose was making it easier to buy things from Amazon, a solution looking for a problem. It ignored price advantage. Amazon typically undercuts competitors on price, but the Fire Phone launched at $200 with a contract, essentially the same price as iPhone and Samsung Galaxy. This shocked both customers and Amazon employees who learned the price only when Bezos announced it. It created a closed ecosystem. Running Fire OS instead of standard Android meant limited app availability. Customers couldn't access Gmail, YouTube, Google Maps, and thousands of popular apps. It missed market timing. By 2014, the smartphone market was mature. Most people already owned iPhones or Android devices with the O'Neill cylinder dream. Bezos' vision for humanity's future in space isn't Mars colonization, it's something more ambitious. He advocates for O'Neill cylinders, massive rotating space stations first conceived by Princeton physicist Gerard O'Neill in the 1970s. These cylindrical habitats would rotate to create artificial gravity, house millions of people, and use mirrors to reflect sunlight inside, creating Earth-like environments. Bezos envisions thousands of these stations, with people moving freely between them. Why space stations instead of Mars? Bezos argues that Mars has 38% of Earth's gravity, no magnetosphere to block radiation, and a hostile environment requiring humans to live in sealed structures. O'Neill cylinders can be designed for perfect Earth gravity, controlled climates, and beautiful landscapes. The vision requires dropping the cost of space access by orders of magnitude. Blue Origin's reusable rockets are the first step. The company is developing infrastructure for lunar manufacturing, recognizing that building structures in space requires resources mined from the moon or asteroids. The multi-generational project. Bezos acknowledges this vision won't be realized in his lifetime.
It's a multi-generational project requiring centuries of development. But he's laying the foundation: reusable rockets, lunar landers, orbital manufacturing capabilities. This might be the purest expression of Bezos' thinking. Start with an audacious vision centuries in the future, work backwards to what needs to happen today, and begin building infrastructure that enables each subsequent step. What we can learn from how Bezos thinks. For entrepreneurs, business leaders, and anyone building something significant, Bezos' career offers actionable lessons. Think longer than your competition. While others optimize for quarters, optimize for decades. This longer time horizon creates space for genuine innovation and allows you to make investments competitors can't afford. Ask yourself, what would I do differently if I knew success would take 10 years instead of 2? Obsess over customers in ways that seem irrational. Don't just say customer first, make decisions that prove it, even when they reduce short-term profits. Customer trust compounds over time, creating moats competitors can't cross. Remember, customers are loyal to experiences, not companies. Build infrastructure businesses that create leverage. Platforms beat products. Infrastructure businesses that enable others create network effects, recurring revenue, and defensible competitive advantages. Ask, what are we building for ourselves that others would pay to use? Accept that meaningful innovation requires permission to fail. Protect people who take smart risks. Create a culture where failure is acceptable, but not learning from failure is unforgivable. Make most decisions quickly with 70% of the information, treating them as experiments rather than irrevocable commitments. Use success to fund bigger ambitions. Don't optimize locally when you can think globally. Amazon's retail profits funded AWS development. AWS profits funded Prime Video, Alexa, and countless experiments. Use winning businesses to fund future winners. Combined vision with operational rigor. Dreams without execution remain dreams. Obsess over the details, logistics, processes, systems. Excellence in 1,000 small things compounds into extraordinary results. Codify principles that enable autonomous decision-making at scale. As organizations grow, inconsistent decision-making kills them. Define clear principles that allow people to make decisions independently while staying aligned with core values. Measure what matters, input metrics, not just output metrics. You can't directly control revenue or profit. You can control customer experience, selection, price, and quality. Focus on controllable inputs that drive desired outputs. Resist proxies. As organizations grow, they replace reality with proxies, processes, surveys, metrics. Remember that proxies are indicators, not the thing itself. Stay connected to ground truth. Create self-reinforcing flywheels. Design business models where each element reinforces the others. Lower prices attract customers. More customers increase volume. Higher volume lowers costs. Lower costs enable lower prices. Find your flywheel. How Jeff Bezos really thinks. After examining decades of decisions across retail, cloud computing, hardware, media, and space exploration, a coherent picture emerges of how Jeff Bezos thinks. He thinks in systems. Everything is inputs, processes, outputs, and feedback loops. He identifies leverage points where small changes create outsized effects. He designs systems that improve themselves over time. He thinks quantitatively. Intuition guides, but data decides. He measures obsessively, builds models, tests hypotheses, and lets numbers reveal truth that intuition obscures. He thinks long-term, decades, not quarters, centuries for space ambitions. This patience enables investments competitors can't make and creates space for genuine innovation. He thinks backwards from customers. What do customers want? What makes their lives better? Work backwards from that to the solution. Never start with technology and search for customers. He thinks probabilistically. Most decisions are two-way doors that can be reversed. Make them quickly, treating them as experiments rather than irrevocable commitments. He thinks infrastructurally. Platforms beat products.
Infrastructure businesses that enable others create leverage, recurring revenue, and defensible competitive advantages. Operationally, strategy without execution is hallucination. Obsess over the details, logistics, processes, systems. Excellence and 1,000 small things compounds into extraordinary results. Darwinistically, ideas must compete. The market tests everything. Failures teach. Protect experimentation. High-velocity decision-making enables rapid iteration. Culturally, organizations naturally decay without active resistance. Codify principles. Fight bureaucracy constantly. Maintain day-one thinking regardless of size. Exponentially, small advantages compound. Marginal improvements, sustained over time, create insurmountable leads. Think in compounding systems, not linear progressions. 2025 and beyond. As of late 2025, Jeff Bezos' net worth exceeds $220 billion, making him one of the 3 wealthiest people in history. But his impact transcends wealth. He fundamentally changed how consumers shop, how businesses compute, how subscriptions work, and how space companies operate. Amazon redefined customer expectations globally. 2-day shipping isn't special anymore. It's expected. Comprehensive selection isn't remarkable. It's baseline. Free returns aren't generous. They're mandatory. These expectations ripple through every retail business worldwide. AWS created the modern cloud computing industry, enabling startups and enterprises to build at previously impossible scales. Without AWS, companies like Netflix, Airbnb, Slack, and countless others wouldn't exist in their current form. Cloud computing is now a $600 billion annual industry. Blue Origin is still nascent, but if Bezos' track record predicts anything, patient capital applied over decades will eventually produce breakthroughs in space access, orbital manufacturing, and human settlement beyond Earth. The incomplete story. Unlike some business leaders whose career ended with retirement or failure, Bezos' story remains unfinished. At 61, he has potentially decades to pursue Blue Origin's vision, make new investments through Bezos Expeditions, and deploy philanthropic capital through the Bezos Earth Fund and other initiatives. His approach to this next chapter reflects familiar thinking. Focus on areas where patient capital and long-term vision create maximum impact. Space exploration requires decades of infrastructure building. Climate change demands sustained investment in breakthrough technologies. These challenges align perfectly with his strengths. The Bezos legacy. When future historians assess the early 21st century, Jeff Bezos will appear prominently, not just as a wealthy entrepreneur, but as someone who rewired commerce, created critical infrastructure, and potentially enabled humanity's expansion beyond Earth. His legacy includes the transformation of retail. Amazon forced every retailer to rethink operations, logistics, customer experience, and digital strategy. The Amazon effect describes business closures, but also the global improvement in retail efficiency and customer experience. The cloud computing revolution. AWS democratized access to enterprise-grade infrastructure, enabling the startup explosion of the 2010s and the digital transformation of traditional businesses. The subscription economy. Amazon Prime popularized the subscription model, now applied to streaming, software, meal kits, and countless other industries. The revival of space ambition. Alongside SpaceX, Blue Origin rekindled public interest in space exploration and demonstrated that private capital could achieve what was once possible only for superpowers. A business philosophy. Day-one thinking, customer obsession, working backwards, high-velocity decision-making, these concepts now influence how thousands of companies operate. In 1969, a 5-year-old Jeff Bezos watched Neil Armstrong step onto the moon. Something ignited in that moment. A conviction that humanity's future extended beyond Earth.
The incomplete story. Unlike some business leaders whose careers ended with retirement or failure, Bezos' story remains unfinished. At 61, he has potentially decades to pursue Blue Origin's vision, make new investments through Bezos Expeditions, and deploy philanthropic capital through the Bezos Earth Fund and other initiatives.
His approach to this next chapter reflects familiar thinking. Focus on areas where patient capital and long-term vision create maximum impact. Space exploration requires decades of infrastructure building. Climate change demands sustained investment in breakthrough technologies. These challenges align perfectly with his strengths. The Bezos legacy. When future historians assess the early 21st century, Jeff Bezos will appear prominently, not just as a wealthy entrepreneur, but as someone who rewired commerce, created critical infrastructure, and potentially enabled humanity's expansion beyond Earth. His legacy includes the transformation of retail. Amazon forced every retailer to rethink operations, logistics, customer experience, and digital strategy. The Amazon effect describes business closures, but also the global improvement in retail efficiency and customer experience. The cloud computing revolution. AWS democratized access to enterprise-grade infrastructure, enabling the startup explosion of the 2010s and the digital transformation of traditional businesses. The subscription economy. Amazon Prime popularized the subscription model now applied across streaming, software, meal kits, and countless other industries. The revival of space ambition. Alongside SpaceX, Blue Origin rekindled public interest in space exploration and demonstrated that private capital could achieve what was once possible only for superpowers. A business philosophy. Day one thinking, customer obsession, working backwards, high-velocity decision-making. These concepts now influence how thousands of companies operate. In 1969, a 5-year-old Jeff Bezos watched Neil Armstrong step onto the moon. Something ignited in that moment, a conviction that humanity's future extended beyond Earth, that the impossible was merely difficult, and that patient, methodical effort could achieve anything. That conviction, combined with rigorous systems thinking, quantitative analysis, customer obsession, and willingness to work on impossibly long timescales, produced one of history's most consequential business careers. The boy who dismantled his crib because it constrained him grew into the man who dismantled barriers in retail, computing, and space exploration. The pattern remained consistent: identify constraints, understand their mechanisms, engineer solutions, and build systems that scale. Whether humanity will build those space colonies the 18-year-old Jeff Bezos imagined in his valedictorian speech remains uncertain. Whether Blue Origin will successfully reduce launch costs by orders of magnitude remains unproven. Whether the O'Neill cylinder vision will ever materialize remains speculative. But if the past 40 years teach us anything, it's this: Jeff Bezos thinks differently about time, scale, and possibility. He commits resources and sustained effort to visions others dismiss as impossible. And with surprising frequency, the impossible becomes inevitable. The real story of Jeff Bezos isn't about wealth accumulation or business success, though he achieved both extraordinarily. The story is about how one person's distinctive way of thinking, systematic, quantitative, long-term, customer-obsessed, and operationally rigorous, can reshape industries, create infrastructure that powers millions of businesses, and potentially extend human civilization beyond its cradle. The final chapters remain unwritten. Blue Origin might achieve the dramatic cost reductions needed for orbital manufacturing. The Bezos Earth Fund might catalyze breakthrough climate technologies. Amazon might continue evolving under new leadership, or might face regulatory restructuring. But the thinking, the distinctive Bezos operating system that produced these outcomes, offers lessons that transcend any single company or industry. Think longer than your competition. Obsess over customers beyond rationality. Build infrastructure that enables others. Accept that meaningful innovation requires permission to fail.
Use success to fund bigger ambitions. Combine audacious vision with operational excellence. And never, ever accept day two. That, ultimately, is how Jeff Bezos thinks, and understanding that thinking might be more valuable than any single product he created or company he built.